I want to talk about the works themselves, and I really wanted to spend some time with them because, as I think I've mentioned to you, they are at once compelling and beautiful. Your technique, which is it's there's something about your technique that is at once journalistic and also surreal, surreal and in its storytelling, but then also it has a way of transporting us into the moment. You do that so beautifully with both these pieces, and I want you to tell us more about the pieces themselves, more about your engagement with the jet photography of these moments. Could you tell us more about that?
Wow. And also, I'm really humbled by your commentary on the pieces. So this piece is in the style of a Pietà, which is a religious motif in art, mainly European art, Renaissance era art, that depicts the pain of the Virgin Mary, or she wasn't virgin by that time, but Mother Mary, as she embraced the body of her slain son, Jesus, after he's been crucified. It's called the piety or the pity. That's literally what it means. And I talk about how this whole year has felt like a Good Friday experience. It's felt like that. And there's a portion in John's gospel where Jesus calls out to his mother and says, "Woman, behold your son." And, there's not really any indication who he's talking about when he says your son. She's probably thinking that he's speaking of himself. And so what does it mean to look at your dying child as they are unjustly dying or have unjustly died? And when I think about what it took from Mamie Till-Mobley to go and collect her son's body, knowing what has happened to him, and to deliberately look at that form. And in her memoir, she talks about that process and where she had to go and how clinically she had to approach it just so she could stay present in the moment, and how she had to start at his feet and work her way up. Like, where do you have to go to do that? And so in the panel, and this is a diptych. Diptychs are usually attached. They're not attached, but these are two paintings that are to be viewed as one piece, one cohesive piece. So in the first panel, "Woman, behold your son," I take that Jet magazine footage, which includes a lot more than what I've painted, by the way. It includes Emmett's dressed body. And I focus, I tighten in on her and try to really communicate both the gravity and the weight of that grief, but also the fact that she has to steel herself to even be there in that moment, because she had so many people standing at the ready, either telling her that she shouldn't do it because, nobody should do that, or just waiting for her to collapse. So I wanted to talk about how she steels herself. I wanted to show how she steels herself in that moment. And you talked about the sort of surrealistic element of the pieces in that particular panel too. There are these depictions of these sort of forms, and they come from an interview that she gave where she talked about an encounter she had the night she learned about Emmett's fate. An encounter that she understands to be a conversation with God. And she's arguing with God, like angry, like, why did this have to happen? And she, as she tells it, she understands that God told her, okay, I need you to understand that Emmett was my son and not yours. You were there to raise him. His job is done. My son, and this is a Christian woman talking, my son came so that people would have a way toward eternal life. Your son came so that people would have a choice as to what kind of people they would be. And again, we need to be presented with this choice anew because we're still choosing the wrong way. But it is interesting to me that she says that this voice told her, I may have taken one child from you, but I'll give you thousands. So that, who are the thousands though? They could be, because she never had any more children biologically. So they could be the kids that she taught. They could be other children who met similar fates. They could be Tamir Rice. They could be Trayvon Martin. Her children could be other mothers like her, Leslie McSpadden, Sabrina Fulton, Tamika Palmer. So many people are her children. How many more children does she need in those latter categories, though? Is my question. Like, who are the kids and why are there so many of them? Why are there thousands? So that, and there's a portion of the painting where Emmett would have been depicted, but I didn't depict that. That's just white paint right there. And I talk about the social construction of whiteness that creates these societal norms that makes allegedly whistling at a white woman a capital offense, and allows that woman's relatives to be judge, jury, and executioner. And so the second panel is not from Jet Magazine, it's from Chicago Sun-Times footage, where, and they happen in reverse chronological order. This piece is actually when she greets the body as it comes to the train station, and she sees it, and she talks about the weight of those boxes on her, like she's feeling it as she's just looking at the boxes, and she collapses under that weight. And so this is a depiction of that moment, but also the emptiness around her in that moment, because she's surrounded by people, but none of them can take away this grief for her. So there's this inherent loneliness in grief. There's also this opportunity in that emptiness around her. Like, can you step into this? Can you step in and support the Mamie Till-Mobleys that continue to happen? Like, who are you going to be in this moment? And then there's also just the loneliness of her having to go out on a limb and fight against everybody around her. Even as she had so much support around her, she had to fight just to get him home. She had to argue people down just to have that open casket funeral. That open casket funeral that, by the way, pulled the curtain back on what was happening to Black folks in the South. Everything she fought for in those days effected a change. And had she listened to any one of them, I'm not sure what would have become of us. Who would we be?